if you're O'Connell, you have a serious decision to make. Like, what is, again, he's been hurt now in back-to-back years, McCarthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what you have.
100%.
This is a similar situation to what the Niners did with Trey Lance. Like, if the guy can't stay on the field, and again, the limited, you have to do what's best for the organization.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Florida State put up 498 rushing yards on this defense, 8 rushing touchdowns, and they almost averaged 10 yards per carry.
Tough scene.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. It should be 60 to 7.
Yeah. Give me the 7.
I just gave you the 7.
Exactly. And
are you
the
on
extra
this?
point. I'm thinking field goal and maybe a safety.
But are you on
Joe.
this? This is
Over
your best
3.5.
Okay.
Didn't you read the screen? What, are you not paying attention to the show?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I can tell you right now, Jamar Chase is getting moved on a lot of teams. And I understand why. I mean, you don't have Joe Burrow coming back this year. It's just not happening. And then Jake Browning has been less than impressive. There's no doubt about that. So Jamar Chase is still an extraordinary talent, and I think buying him low is interesting. Why? Because if you do look, the schedule does get a little bit easier. The defense is still bad. Jake Browning has been productive.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Americans got to find answers in these partnerships, and I think they need to look at their who's making these decisions from a stat standpoint.
Well, it's so funny to me, especially coming off of the Walker Cup just a few weeks before, how it just seems like there's this glaring chasm between American partnered match play and American individual, singles match play.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. A recap of Monday Night Football straight ahead. Baseball discussion, including some late afternoon games to preview here on the show. So we'll have that for you here on today's program. Also, Bill Bender with the latest landscape of college football. We naturally will check in fantasy football with Joe Pisapia. Also, Tom Vecchio checks in here on the show, and we will preview the upcoming program later today, Just Baseball, which appears exclusively here on SportsGrid. But let's get started with last night's exciting finish. In Monday Night Football, the Jacksonville Jaguars come all the way back and end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs. How about this one? Final 31-28. Trevor Lawrence, final play of the offense, ends up fumbling basically over his feet. So the ball doesn't come out. He falls down, gets up, falls down again, and then runs in for the game-winning score. Great game for Trevor Lawrence, by the way. He was the star of this one. Chance at the end of the game, I would say, for Kansas City, kind of thin, but the Jaguars get it done, so they cover that 3.5-point spread, also win outright. They improve to 4-1 on the season. Here's Liam Cohen on a signature win for his team.
Yeah, really, that's the theme, I think, and that was what we talked about as a team, although we would like to make things very interesting, and it wasn't perfect by any means, but the resiliency is really what I think this team has and has continued to show. There was really no flinch or blink when you're down 14-0. I think early on we might have had a little bit of bright eyes and in a kind of big game that you can understand a little bit in some ways, but got down early, made an effort to come back. The guys stuck with it. Halftime, Devin Lloyd shows up again with a huge play. Really took all 3 phases. I thought all 3 phases really impacted the game. A ton of stuff to correct, but the toughness and resiliency is really something I'm proud of.
Meanwhile, the Chiefs committed 13 penalties in last night's game. That really was the difference because they outgained Jacksonville in the game. But Andy Reid says that doesn't really matter.
My hat goes off to Jacksonville. They did a nice job. We obviously had 13 penalties to their 4. Whether I agree with them or don't agree with them, it doesn't matter. They called them. And so you have that many penalties, you give up field position, you can outstat them to death, but it doesn't matter. It's the score that matters, and we've got to take care of business there. So
Obviously, it sucks. You let a game slip away. Credit to them. They played hard. They played hard the entire game, and they got a lot of good football players. And they closed out there at the end. And so it still sucks whenever you get a lead like that and you're not able to hold it through the rest of the game.
Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers take a commanding 2-0 lead in their best-of-7 series in the National League Division Series against the Chicago Cubs. Lots of home runs by the Brew Crew, Contreras, Vaughn, and more. 7-3, the final. That's been the story for the Brewers all season long, timely hitting and using the long ball to get ahead. And now certainly the Brewers have put themselves in a position to advance with a couple of more wins. Pat Murphy, manager of the Brewers, says sometimes home runs are simply created by the pitching. Take a listen.
That's anytime, home runs are thrown. They're not created. They're thrown. And, we took advantage of that. And sometimes that happens for us during the season. Sometimes we have to win other ways. But the key is you got to find a way. And if you have different ways to win, if you just rely on one thing, it's harder to win. So I'm really pleased we did. Vaughn's home run and then Contreras and Churrio's homers, was the difference in the game.
Look, we made a couple mistakes with multiple runners on base, and after getting off to a great start, those mistakes for 2 3-run homers is going to be, you're not going to win playoff games giving up 2 3-run homers. That was just too much to overcome.
Meanwhile, Red October not going the Phillies' way, to say the least. They lose 4-3 yesterday. Dodgers do hang on to win this game. And as I mentioned, LA has a commanding lead. Who would have thought they would go into the city of brotherly love and pick up the first 2 wins? But good job by them. And it's kind of fair to say at this point that the Phillies, with all that home field advantage that they've had over the years, hasn't really amounted to much when they've gotten into the postseason. They've lost to a number of teams and have yet to win a World Series behind their home crowd. Here's Freddie Freeman on talking about going to Philly and picking up both wins. It was a surprise, apparently, to him.
I think we were just sitting at our locker as I was getting dressed, and Kiku goes, "We just took 2 here. This is a hard place to play. An incredible fan base. It is loud here. For us to come out here, I think we were like get 1, and then obviously when we won 2 days ago, that's when we try to gun ho and get 2 out of here. This is a hard place to play. We obviously put ourselves in a great position going into Wednesday. Hats off to our starting pitching again.
Well, I'll have probably a little meeting with them on Wednesday, but I love the fight in the 8th and 9th inning. They fought like hell, and hopefully that carries over into Wednesday. But this is a resilient group. Our backs are against the wall. You just got to come out fighting.
Go back to Matt.
Will Ranger start game 3?
It'll be Aaron Nola with Ranger behind him.
So those 2 starters in a do-or-die situation for Philadelphia. Today, Game 3 between the Mariners and Detroit Tigers. A little bit of late afternoon baseball, 4:08 Eastern. And then 8:08 Eastern tonight, the Toronto Blue Jays will take on the New York Yankees in New York, with the Blue Jays leading that series 2-0. Carlos Rodon and Shane Bieber, the starters there. Logan Gilbert starts for Seattle. Jack Flaherty starts for Detroit. In the NFL, things have not gone well at quarterback since losing Joe Burrow. Cincinnati Bengals trying to figure this out. Will they go back to Jake Browning or pick somebody else up? Today, they released Mike White off the practice squad, which indicates they're ready to bring another quarterback in. Who that is remains to be seen. And here's Zach Taylor on what that may look like moving forward.
We'll see where it goes. It's, I think, like all personnel decisions, we got to evaluate it. Jake's been very accountable for how the game went for him. I've got to be accountable for how the game went for me as well. And so we'll continue to progress here through the days.
When would you want that to be finalized going for a game week? When do you need to have a guy?
Obviously, these are things that we talk about every single Monday and Tuesday. So we'll evaluate a lot of positions. I think finding more opportunities for our playmakers to get the ball, and finding ways to get them easy touches that they can lead to productivity in our offense. We haven't been productive enough. I don't worry about statistics right now. I care about wins. That's all I worry about. But at the same time, I know that we've got to get more productivity, and that's more opportunity from a lot of our key guys on offense to be able to get the ball in the end zone. And that's me finding the cleanest ways to get them the ball so they can impact the game.
Los Angeles Chargers don't need a quarterback, but it looks like they'll need a running back as Omarion Hampton was placed on injured reserve. They've also lost Najee Harris for the season. As of right now, Jim Harbaugh has Kimani Vidal and Hassan Haskins in the backfield. Here's Harbaugh on the injury to Hampton.
He's going to miss time. Ankle injury. We will put him on IR to return. So he'll miss at least 4 games, and then he'll return as soon as he can after that.
Do you know the nature of the injury?
Ankle. Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, and Omar Johnson's on practice squad, and we'll look to at other avenues as well.
Meanwhile, the Lions have lost Terrion Arnold for a long period of time, cornerback on the Detroit Lions, and J.J. McCarthy will start getting back on the field. Carson Wentz has an injury to his shoulder, but the Vikings are on a bye, so they won't need either of them this week. Coming up next, we check in on college football's top 25 with Bill Bender of Sporting News.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
60,000 drunk New Yorkers who were there from 5 in the morning to 7 p.m., who dropped a house mortgage on a ticket to watch the United States team miss every putt that they can possibly miss, and you think someone's not going to get pissed off and curse people out? Wah! The golf fan wasn't civil. Wah!
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
What worries me, for the future, for the rest of this season for the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey, because all these other guys are out. This guy is getting more workload than anybody else in the NFL. The catches, the carries, the blocking, the chip blocks, the protection. He is just being worked over, and I don't think that is, real good for the 49ers.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The Americans got to find answers in these partnerships, and I think they need to look at who's making these decisions from a stat standpoint.
Well, it's so funny to me, especially coming off of the Walker Cup just a few weeks before, how it just seems like there's this glaring chasm between American partnered match play and American individual, singles match play.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We're getting a lot of optimism here, which I don't know about. This isn't a 21-year-old football player, a devastating knee injury that basically blew, the kneecap and also multiple ligaments. And I was like, surgery, awesome, be back for next year. He might be back for next year, but the Tyreek Hill we're used to, Joe, electric on the field where nobody can catch him. People are going to be catching him now, Joe.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Always fun to check in with Bill Bender from Sporting News and the latest in college football with some massive wins for some teams last week. Bill, welcome back to NewsWire. Great to have you on as we take a look at the AP Top 25 poll. And, not too many changes. Maybe the most significant one of them all is seeing the University of Miami move all the way up now in contention, not just for the college football playoff, but maybe even for the national championship with their decisive win at Florida State. Anything else catch your eye? To me, that was... I mean, look, I understand FSU rolled some points at the end of the game, but to me, that was pretty decisive.
Yeah, they're kind of built to win games 35-14, and they let
Florida State in the game later, but I mean, they check a lot of boxes, Craig. The receivers are amazing, whether it's C.J. Daniels or Malachi Toney. They've developed into one of the better 1-2 receiver combos in the league, the FBS. Carson Beck has been fantastic. He's not making mistakes. And then that defense led by Reuben Bain, who has kind of emerged as one of the best defensive players in the country. I think Kirk Herbstreit said something during the telecast that hit for me is, their biggest opponent might be the mirror for the next couple months. They're not going to see a ranked opponent. They'll be favored in every game. And, the path to an 11-1 or 12-0 is there for Miami. And we haven't said that in a long time.
Yeah, also Clemson looks like a down year, although they disputed that a little bit last week against North Carolina. Okay, so one of the bigger upsets of the season, without a doubt, is UCLA having an awful year, firing their coach, and then beating Penn State 42-37. And this comes a week after Penn State also had a debilitating loss. So at this point, you would guess that Penn State's chances of advancing to the college football playoff are very slim at this point. And Drew Aller, who was, Heisman Trophy candidate at the beginning of the season, even though he was okay, that's pretty much out the window too. What do you make of what's going on in Happy Valley?
Yeah, I didn't have Jerry Neuheisel being carried off the field like 5 days after being hired on my bingo card for last weekend, and let alone UCLA winning the game, after repeatedly letting Penn State back in after building a 20-point lead after halftime. I think it's a devastating loss for Penn State in terms of the playoff race. Now, at minimum, they've got to go 10-2 and sweep Ohio State and Indiana. And that still might not be enough when you look at their non-conference schedule and this loss. Like, you're not putting a 10-2 Penn State team in over a 10-2 Notre Dame, who lost to Texas A&M and Miami. So it is a trouble spot. It's going to lead to a lot of frustration. I don't think James Franklin loses his job, but it's going to cast some serious doubts about the overall tenure of the program moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's a long shot, but I think they're going to have to beat Ohio State to call this a good year, and that's coming up early November. They also play against Indiana. That will be a game they may be even favored in, even though they're not ranked, but they got to win, I think, that game against OSU. We mentioned Miami defeating FSU 28-22. Carson Beck, Bill, on the road, I think most impressively here, threw 4 touchdown passes in that game. And the Hurricanes right now are huge favorites to get into the college football playoff. This is not where they were a year ago. And, certainly I think at this point, when you look at them and you look at the schedule, as you mentioned, it's going to require some collapse for them to not get in the playoff and not advance. And I guess the only thing, if you wanted to poke a hole at this whole conversation, is saying, hey, that's what they've done. They've collapsed the last few years. They've looked good and they've collapsed. But I don't know. Seems like a different team this year.
Methodical. You look at Carson Beck in short passes. I know I talk a lot on this show about intermediate and deep passes, but less than 10 yards, 90%. So there aren't needless incompletions along the way. The only Power 4 quarterbacks who have been better in that short passing game are Julian Sayin at Ohio State and Bo Pribula at Missouri, who we'll talk about later in the week as they get ready for Alabama. I think Carson Beck's been under total control. He really fits what Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson do on that offense. And again, I just look for them. They complement each other well. They're playing very good complementary football. How many times have you heard a coach say that? These guys are doing it well.
Now, I look at the next story to me, and this is one of the bigger stories of the season. Now, Bill, my Gators, I was thrilled that they let the offense roll a little bit with DJ Lagway. I don't know what they've been doing the last few weeks. Lagway looked really good. But, Bill, we got to both be honest here. I got to be honest, and you got to be honest. All of us thought Arch Manning eventually was just going to turn it around and be great. It's not happening. He's not that good. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say about it at this point. He sort of walked through some bad opponents, etc. But two interceptions again against the Gators? How did everybody get this wrong?
Yeah, a lot of old takes exposed, including us at Sporting News. I know I had Arch Manning at the top of those rankings and the preseason All-American team. So I'm guilty and I'm complicit like everybody else. I think it's the accuracy stands out. Craig, I don't know if you caught the play. There was a first half. He throws a swing pass and it just the footwork was off. The timing was off. And some of that was Florida's defense and some of it there's a lot of growth to be done. And now you have people openly asking whether or not he's going to be benched. So it sets up the Red River rivalry with what a story that could be. Texas getting a third loss against Michael Hawkins Jr., or Arch Manning delivers a victory, maybe sets them up for the second half of the season. And there's a lot of pressure. And as you know, that game is as unpredictable as ever anyway.
It is. Now let's get to a real Heisman Trophy candidate. And I think I saw somebody mention that if Ty Simpson's name was Ty Manning, this guy would be the favorite to win the Heisman. He's had the best year for any quarterback. Let's just keep it real at this point. One bad game this year for Ty Simpson. 340 yards on Saturday, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. We talked about this game last week. Is this a trap spot for Alabama? Not even close. They're playing fantastic football. Look out, Bill. I think Bama, may not win the SEC. I'm not sure. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Nobody wants to play this team right now.
They're going to be favored in every game the rest of the season. That helps. And Jam Miller's return, he added that physical running presence against Vanderbilt that made a difference. And Ty Simpson throws a good ball. Doesn't mess it up. And I know they lost that first game, but he's been fantastic ever since. And if you're looking for Heisman candidates, you look at the best teams. Alabama's going to be in the mix. Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, Dante Moore at Oregon. To me, it's not that complicated. You go for the best players on the best teams.
Bill, great stuff. As always, appreciate you coming on. We'll see if the Tide keep rolling. They moved up, by the way, to 3rd to win the national championship. Thanks again.
Hey, thank you.
Bill Bender with us. We'll preview the college football games this weekend a little bit later in the week. We'll be right back.
At this event, people from Amazon and Alexa made it very clear that in addition to Sports Highlight coming up, you will be able to perhaps buy sports tickets to events, buy movie tickets, arrange fantasy football teams, and I think somewhere down the road, maybe not too far down the road, given the NBA on Prime deal, they will allow sports betting on the television set through Alexa Plus.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
I'm done with the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not upset about it because they look vulnerable. I cannot believe this team is 4-0 because they could easily be 1-3. They go on their heels, and I can't believe they have not one but 2 double-digit victories in games they could have very well lost.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The Americans got to find answers in these partnerships, and I think they need to look at who's making these decisions from a stat standpoint.
Well, it's so funny to me, especially coming off of the Walker Cup just a few weeks before, how it just seems like there's this glaring chasm between American partnered match play and American individual, singles match play.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Mike Trout, will he ask for a trade? And maybe I'm a bit of a Neanderthal for asking this, and people are going to say, listen, he's never leaving. I refuse to accept that we're just not going to get Mike Trout postseason baseball ever again. Because clearly when healthy, he can still do it. But he's also rarely healthy and still kind of expensive. It's complicated.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Time to get to some top 25 showdowns in college football and take a look at some future odds in college football as well. We'll do it all here in the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, biggest game of the season for Brett Bielema and Illinois. It's on deck this week. A lot at stake if they can somehow upset the #1 team in the country. Boy, would they move up inside the top 10. No doubt about that. Let's get a preview as OSU takes on the Illini, as OSU's got to go on the road. Here's Bielema on the challenge.
But like our guys, like the attitude, like their demeanor. I don't know if we have ever, played a game yet where we put it all together for 4 quarters, and there'd be no better time than this week, right? This is a team that you need your best at opening snaps to the last snap. And with that being said, I need our crew out there in Memorial Stadium, Geese Memorial Stadium, to be as best as they've been. I tell our guys every day, 3 things you should do every day when you wake up. Do things right, respect everyone, and be the best you, right? Anybody that's coming in that stadium, if you can give me that on Saturday and be here a little early. Students, make an appeal to you. I know they got up early to go over to the Barstool Big Noon kickoff thing, and then they couldn't quite make it to the 4th quarter last time. So if you got to taper your entry to maybe like 7 or 8, don't be there at 2 a.m., because we need you for the long haul, right? We need you for as long as we need you on Saturday. So it should be a great environment. I'm telling you, when you walk into these environments in the Big Ten with great stadiums, you actually feel the energy when you walk on the field. And we are very, very close to doing that. And hopefully Saturday will be the icing on the cake for this year. So,
yeah, they'll need all fans to get involved in that one, and more than just football to pick up that win. Same could be said for the Tigers this Saturday as Missouri hosts number 8 Alabama. Crimson Tide, as I mentioned, surging at the moment, and as of right now, in the driver's seat for the SEC as well. Here's Kalen DeBoer on going on the road.
We got to move forward. We got a very good football team coming off a bye week. We got to play a 11 o'clock kickoff and on the road. So we just got to be ready to get ready to roll tomorrow. Have a great week of practice, and the guys I think are, now into that just rinse and repeat kind of mode, each and every week, understanding the process. And we got to continue to get better at the process, because again, those things that happened early in the game or our lack of execution early in the game, that happened for a reason. Some of it's your opponent, but some of it's just we got to do our job better. And so that's going to be the challenge going ahead here. And, again, Missouri posed a lot of problems for you, just what they do physically, running the football. I mean, they're dominant against the run. They're dominant. Time possession, put a lot of points on the board and hold teams down, with the limited possessions you're probably going to get. So Coach Drinkwitz has done a great job building that program up, been super consistent here with the wins, but also just consistent each and every week with what you're going to get. And, we're going to be looking forward to a great challenge on Saturday.
Finally, as you would suspect, the Ducks are favored this week as they take on Indiana, and it should be a fun matchup between 2 teams inside the top 10, not to mention a possibility that quarterback Dante Moore takes another step toward a potential Heisman Trophy award. Here's the head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, Curt Cignetti, on taking on Moore this Saturday.
Yeah. Well, he's playing really well. He's another guy. Got big-time arm talent, quick release, accurate. He's very athletic, very fluid, can run, extend plays, change of direction. He's getting the ball out on time, rhythm, and he snaps it off really quick. He's really impressive on tape. And the wide receivers are equally as impressive. Tight end, good depth there, good depth at running back. They spread the ball around. They use the field, and they run the ball well. So as he's played more, you can see he's building on his success, confidence, belief. And, he's one of the great quarterbacks in the country. There's no doubt about it.
Dante Moore currently 5-1 on the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the Heisman Trophy Award. Carson Beck is 6-1, Ty Simpson plus 750. Jeremiah Smith has pretty much been holding court at plus 800 or plus 850 for the majority of the season. Julian Sand of Ohio State is 14-1. And of course, Indiana has their great quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, playing this week. So if Mendoza and Indiana end up beating Oregon, get ready to see some of those Heisman Trophy awards flip. Coming up next, it's time to dive into the latest in fantasy football. You better be ready to hit that waiver wire this week, because I'm sure that everybody's got injuries this time of the year. We'll check in with Joe Pisapia of Fantasy Pros and of Fantasy Sports Today coming up next. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid.
if you're O'Connell, you have a serious decision to make. Like, what is, again, he's been hurt now in back-to-back years, McCarthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what you have.
100%.
This is a similar situation to what the Niners did with Trey Lance. Like, if the guy can't stay on the field, and again, limited, you have to do what's best for the organization.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Florida State put up 498 rushing yards on this defense, 8 rushing touchdowns, and they almost averaged 10 yards per carry.
Tough scene.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. It should be 60 to 7.
Yeah. Give me the 7.
I just gave you the 7.
Exactly. And
Are
miss
you
the
on
extra
this?
point. I'm thinking field goal and maybe a
But are
safety.
you on
Joe.
this? This is
Over
your best
3.5.
bet? Okay.
Didn't you read the screen?
I
What are you not
could
paying
barely
attention
read
to the
it.
show?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I can tell you right now, Jamar Chase is getting moved on a lot of teams. And I understand why. I mean, you don't have Joe Burrow coming back this year. It's just not happening. And then Jake Browning has been less than impressive. There's no doubt about that. So Jamar Chase is still an extraordinary talent, and I think buying him low is interesting. Why? Because if you do look, the schedule does get a little bit easier. The defense is still bad. Jake Browning has been productive.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Americans got to find answers in these partnerships, and I think they need to look at their who's making these decisions from a stat standpoint.
Well, it's so funny to me, especially coming off of the Walker Cup just a few weeks before, how it just seems like there's this glaring chasm between American partnered match play and American individual, singles match play.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
For the first time all season, I can really say that I was a fantasy winner this past week. Yeah, I've had a couple of wins here and there, but this was the best week that I had in fantasy. So I'm a little bit more excited to dive into it with Joe Pisapia, who you can catch every Sunday morning on Fantasy Sports Today and, of course, on Fantasy Pros as well. I definitely, Joe, was savvy, got ahead of some things, and ended up helping myself off the waiver wire, which definitely led to my win. And a couple of the names we're going to talk about in the winners are on my list. Go figure there. So welcome back to the show.
Well, it's good that you had a good week. I like that. Look, it's a long season, everybody. It gets longer every year. Patience. 0-4 is tough. That's a tough thing to have to stomach through the month of September. But it's a new month. It's a fresh start. It's a fresh W for Craig Mish. So there's some fresh guys in the waiver wire we'll talk about, and a lot of really great performances, I think, from last week, especially from some of those backup running backs who people had to pick up and stream. It seemed like every day or every hour we were losing another running back. So by the time you got to waiver wire this week, most of them are gone.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot out there. We'll get to the Chargers situation. That'll be the one. I think that there would be some possibilities there. But the fantasy winners for Joe this past week, hey, 2 guys on my team, Emeka Egbuka, who was like the best pick in all of fantasy football this season. I mean, better to be lucky than good. I didn't see this coming. He's been incredible. And then I look, when, last week, Joe, before the weekend, before things got started, I saw some reports on Trey Benson. I thought to myself, if I don't get ahead of this now and something ends up happening, I'm going to regret it. So I did pick up Michael Carter. He had 51 yards. He had a touchdown, and maybe he'll get the next one too, because this DeMercado guy completely blew it.
He certainly did. Look, Michael Carter certainly got a good run of that backfield, 18 attempts. That's what you want to see. You want to see him getting the volume and the goal line work. And speaking of goal line, obviously, DeMercado, we'll get to that in just a second. But he also had a couple of receptions, too, 5 of 5 there. So 5 targets, 5 catches. That's also important. So Carter, a very valuable pickup. We'll get more on him. But look, Egbuka, to me, is the breakout star of this year. He is number 1 on the Rookie of the Year list right now. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're looking forward and projecting to 2026, he's going to be somebody, I think, taken somewhere around 10, 11, 12 potentially. I'm saying, there's definitely a spot there for him with Mike Evans and Godwin aging up here, that Emeka Egbuka is viewed as possibly even a top 10 pick in fantasy next season. So if you have him, and I do in a bunch of leagues, it was a great day. We had the overs on FST on him. That hit. In fact, we're 8-0 the last 2 weeks on all of those fantasy props. So hopefully you're watching there, even if you don't play fantasy and you're wagering. Very useful stuff. But I think the real breakout, the real winners, those Patriots? Drake May, an incredible performance, big time throws in big spots, making plays. Stephon Diggs having an incredible back-to-back 100-yard gains there for him in back-to-back games. So this was a huge victory for a number of reasons. And the biggest one is, if you look at the Patriots schedule now upcoming, it gets a lot easier. They got New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, and Atlanta. There's a good chance they could win 4 in a row. And if they do, all of a sudden, because they've won in Buffalo, that puts a lot of pressure on the Buffalo Bills to keep pace with them. And potentially then they have to go and play them again. Where are they playing them? Obviously, this time around it's going to be in New England. So we'll see how that goes. I think the Buffalo Bills are still the team to beat in that division. But the Patriots looked like a playoff team, and the defense with Christian Gonzalez, totally different with him on the field, very physical. And I think that was a huge victory that could really turn the season around for the Patriots. And in terms of fantasy, Stephon Diggs, rest of season, probably a top 20 wide receiver as well.
So let's hit the waiver wire. Oh, you want to do the losers first? I'm sorry. The losers now in fantasy.
We have to.
DeMercado, the biggest loser of the season with that. I mean, not only did he just let go of that touchdown, but there still are leagues out there, Joe, when you score a long touchdown, they give you the extra points too. I mean, definitely he was the case, and without a doubt, the Jets. And then this last guy is actually somebody I played a couple of weeks ago. I took a shot with Geno Smith. I'm going to cut him this week.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that you don't see Geno Smith start this week, or if he does start, that he doesn't finish the game. Kenny Pickett would be the pivot point there. It's not a great pivot point, but you can't turn the ball over. He's leading the league in interceptions. He's got more interceptions than he does touchdowns at this point, and that's just something you can't handle. I know Brock Bowers' injury hasn't helped, but look, they've got to stop turning the football over. It's killing fantasy points, and it's killing drives, and it's killing the Raiders right now. Also, the Jets are killing their fans. They are the only team without a win here heading into week 6. It's the earliest, by the way, since 2005 that we've got a team that is actually that no undefeated teams, right? So by week 5,
right.
The Bills were the last one. They're done. So it's been almost 20 years since that happened. And we have just one team without a win, and it's the New York Jets. And I thought that, like a lot of people, that Aaron Glenn would bring a different level of defense and toughness and mental toughness to this team. And once that fumble happened, it's funny, it was a 10-3 game there just about to the end of the half. And then that Breece Hall fumble happened, and then you have that punch in for that touchdown of Javonte Williams. The next thing you know, the 17-3 just opens up even more in the third quarter, and it's gone. So really tough situation there for all of the above. And in terms of the other loser, too, I mean, Amari Dermacano, I don't know what there is to say, except the fact that it just happened the week before, and it was everywhere again, and people were talking about it. I don't know how that's not in your head as an offensive player, that you are making sure that you're carrying that football over to the goal line. Frankly, it's unprofessional. If they had just cut him on the spot, it wouldn't have shocked me. I know he didn't mean it. I know it's just a bad look, but this is the pros right now, and you can't make those kind of mistakes, Craig.
Yeah, he came back in and played. I couldn't believe it, even at the end of the game, that he did that. Also, some whispers, I see if this picks up, of potentially Breece Hall. Again, whispers maybe going from the Jets to the Chargers. That would be a heck of a pickup if they were able to make that deal somewhere around the deadline. We will see. All right, so waiver wire targets here. I don't think Michael Carter is available in most leagues at this point, but 39%. Everybody else here, I think, is. So Mason Taylor and Theo Johnson, the tight ends. The guy from Gremlins, Kyle Monagai, 10%, running back on the Bears. Kendrick Bourne had the game of his life. And then you'll tell me right now how things will work out in the Chargers backfield. I mean, I don't know. I mean, finally, does this guy Kimani Vidal make everybody right from like 3 years ago? I don't think so. I don't think they have anyone
I don't think so either. I don't think so either, but I think the one thing you do want to pay attention to is in the next 24 to 48 hours, they've elevated him from the practice squad twice. Now, they can only do that one more time before they have to sign him to the roster. If they sign him to the roster, that's a commitment maybe to Kimani Vidal that you could say, okay, maybe there is something here that we should pay attention to. However, I'm with you. I think it's Hassan Haskins for the next couple weeks here, where Amari Hampton is going to be out. Haskins is a guy that played at Michigan with Harbaugh. I think there's a comfortability factor there. I think he's got some limitations, but in terms of goal line work, that's going to be your guy. And I would not be shocked if the Chargers did make some kind of move. I don't know who it would be for. The Breece Hall would be a big one if that's the case. And you hear those rumblings, Isaiah Davis is the guy to pick up right now because Braylon Allen's going to be out for a while. So if you want to kind of circumvent this whole situation, Isaiah Davis probably should be rostered anyway. You're right about Michael Carter as well. Michael Carter is rostered in about 59% already on sleeper leagues, but on Yahoo, just 39%, which I thought was really odd. Now, I know Yahoo and ESPN have a lot of dead teams on it and some shallow leagues, right? 10-team leagues where maybe we're not looking that hard at some of these running backs sometimes. But if he's floating around there, he's still the number one pickup of the week. You're right. Chasing Kendrick Bourne is a tenuous situation. I think you have to maybe add him for a couple bucks, see what happens. Kyle Monangai, I think, is really interesting because DeAndre Swift has not looked good. In the last game he played, the stink of that game got covered up by a touchdown. And there's a world where Kyle Monangai starts to become the David Montgomery in this offense, just the way they were in Detroit, where there was 2 running backs. And I think it's going to be really interesting because people will sort their free agents. They won't see any stats from Monangai because he was on a bye. He's a guy you can sneak through the waiver wire, which I really do like. And look, you're right. It's a tough situation because you have to make that call how much you want to spend on a guy like Haskins, where you don't know how long it's going to last, what it's going to look like. But right now, the Chargers are in a tough spot. They've gone from 3-0 start to potentially staring at an 0-3 over the next 3 games. The offensive line having massive issues, losing not 1 but 2 running backs. There's a lot of problems right now, losing Khalil Mack. You know, between them and the Ravens, you've seen some of these big-time AFC teams just get riddled and destroyed with injuries, and it's really hurting all the fantasy properties. Look at Derrick Henry, look at Mark Andrews, these guys that we thought would be really solid this year. No Lamar Jackson. We see what happens next.
By the way, you mentioned those 2 tight ends. I've been holding on to Evan Ingram, and I saw something that I thought I'd been seeing all season long. It finally happened in the fourth quarter. Can he build on that, you think?
He can, but I think Mason Taylor right now is already the number 2 in that Jets offense, and I think Theo Johnson, especially if Slayton is out, is a great streamer this week. So I would take both of those guys over Evan Ingram this week.
Got it, Joe. Thanks again.
If you're O'Connell, you have a serious decision to make. Like, what is, again, he's been hurt now in back-to-back years, McCarthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what you have.
100%.
This is a similar situation to what the Niners did with Trey Lance. Like, if the guy can't stay on the field, and again, limited, you have to do what's best for the organization.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Florida State put up 498 rushing yards on this defense, 8 rushing touchdowns, and they almost averaged 10 yards per carry.
Tough scene.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. It should be 60-7.
Yeah. Give me the 7.
I just gave you the 7.
Exactly. And
are you
the
on
extra
this?
point. I'm thinking field goal and maybe a
but
safety.
Are you on
Joe.
this? This is
Over
your best
3.5.
Okay.
Didn't you read the screen? What are you not paying attention to the show?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I can tell you right now, Jamar Chase is getting moved on a lot of teams. And I understand why. I mean, you don't have Joe Burrow coming back this year. It's just not happening. And then Jake Browning has been less than impressive. There's no doubt about that. So Jamar Chase is still an extraordinary talent, and I think buying him low is interesting. Why? Because if you do look, the schedule does get a little bit easier. The defense is still bad. Jake Browning has been productive.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Americans got to find answers in these partnerships, and I think they need to look at who's making these decisions from a stat standpoint.
Well, it's so funny to me, especially coming off of the Walker Cup just a few weeks before, how it just seems like there's this glaring chasm between American partnered match play and American individual, singles match play.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Tom Vecchio is with us for the latest in the National Football League, including a monster win for the Jacksonville Jaguars last night. People are, laughed at me all last year about Washington here on this show. I kept saying Washington going all the way. Got laughed at for like 12 weeks. Did it this year with Jacksonville. Been laughed at. I'm getting laughed at again. But I don't know, Tom. I don't know. I mean, I think... Look, are the Jaguars the best team in the AFC? No. Are they the best team in the NFL? No. But I think there are cracks in every team in the NFL right now. I mean, the Jaguars just beat the Chiefs. The Ravens just lost by 30. Buffalo just lost to New England. So, look, you can laugh at me if you want and say Jacksonville's got no chance, but I'm here to tell you, I say this year, expect the unexpected in the NFL.
That's a great way to put it. And, again, to your point, like, you're not saying the Jags are going to win the Super Bowl, but as long as you are ahead of the curve with a team like this or Washington last year, they're going to cover X amount more games. They're going to win X amount more games. And that's only going to be beneficial to you when it's all said and done. So, we can really, kind of poke holes, like you said, in every single team, top to bottom. I don't mind the Bills' loss. Again, I would kind of say like that's a bad game rather than a sign of bad things to come. But being ahead of the curve with the Jags or, Seattle's been playing well despite their loss over the weekend, being a step ahead is always a good thing.
So do you think that Trevor Lawrence finally found it after kind of falling over all himself yesterday? It was the best game of his career. I mean, 3 total touchdowns, 221 passing yards, 51 rushing yards. Tom, what he reminded me of in that game yesterday? Him at Clemson. Like, that's the way that he used to do it, right? He used to rush for about 50 yards at a touchdown, which led him to being the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I wonder, at the expense, unfortunately, of ETN, but I wonder if this is the game plan moving forward.
I think it was probably his best game. I would love to see the turnovers get cut down. Like, that is a huge thing because, they're showing the stats last night, the interceptions, the fumbles, since dating back to whatever it was, 20, 23, 24, over that span, really high. So if he can cut down on literally just 1 per game, we're not saying eliminate them completely, but if you eliminate 1 turnover per game, every coach obviously would love that. That's going to put them in that much better spot. And sure, not every drive is going to turn into a touchdown. But if you have not that interception and they can convert that into a field goal, that will elevate the team overall. There will be less pressure on the defense, and that will just be like a domino effect of things to come. So I think as long as the system, he stays within the system that Cohen has going, they will be in a great spot, and they can honestly compete for the division.
They should. Their win total right now on FanDuel is 10.5. So that tells you that all the things that we're talking about are legitimate. Certainly if they go under that, 10 wins still gets them in the playoffs, maybe even a home game. We'll see. By the way, that's South right now. Fair to say for me, Tom, I know I'm going to throw out Houston's win this past week in the way that they won it. I think they're a better team that they've shown, but I don't think they're going to roll teams by 30, and Tennessee's terrible. 3 teams making the playoffs? What do you think?
I would probably push back on that. I would say at most 2. At the end of the day, the Chargers, you were just talking with Joe in the previous segment, not great right now, but there's still a clear path forward for them overall. Same thing with the Broncos. I still have my doubts about Bo Nix. I want to see a much higher level of consistency. How he played in the fourth quarter of the weekend was great. How he played in the previous quarters wasn't so great. So I could see 2 teams coming out of the West. The Chiefs will kind of find their balance when it's all said and done. I think it'll just be the Bills, but I do see a path forward for the Pats because their upcoming schedule for the Pats is very, very easy. So at a certain point, we're going to see some of those teams, cannibalize each other themselves in the South, and an extra loss here or there will just set the Texans back just a step further. When a Pats team that may not be as good has an easier schedule, and the path forward for them is that much better.
Patrick Mahomes seems to be dialing it back statistically. The Chiefs' record, naturally not as good as you would expect through 5 games of a season, but he threw for over 300 yards, 60 rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns. And it does feel a little bit like the Chiefs are going to do something similar that they did a year before, but maybe, Tom, doing it a little bit differently because their offense does look better than it did a year ago. So that tells me all they're going to look to do is just play this thing kind of quietly and then hope to get hot at the end of the season, make sure they get 1 home game or 2.
I would have to agree. And frankly, their rushing attack is terrible. Like when Mahomes is coming in, leading the team in rushing, that's an issue. When you have 2, I'm not going to say great running backs, but you have 2 viable backs that you could be mixing in throughout the game plan. I will say it's not a surprise if you kind of take a step back and look at the Chiefs. Well, they're 11-0 last year in 1-score games, and the fact that now all of a sudden they're on the other side of the coin this year, they're losing these games. So I expect them to go 0-11 in 1-score games? No, of course not. But in reality, when you look at the NFL and trends over the course of years, you're just not going to constantly win 1-score games at a high rate year over year. It can happen within 1 year, and we're seeing it with the Bucs right now. But if you were to tell me that the Chiefs flip on the other side of the coin and they start winning a handful of 1-score games, that's what should elevate them overall because Mahomes is still playing amazing when it's all said and done.
AFC West currently led by 3 teams, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and also the Denver Broncos. So they're all 3-2. So how do you see this one playing out at the end of the season? Do you see, again, is this a division where all three make it?
I could see certainly a path forward for all three making it. I honestly, the spot would be to look to the Broncos, because based on where the Chargers are with their injury situation right now, and it's not going to be an easy stretch of games. Joe Alt is out, Hampton is out, Harris is done for the season. The Broncos have a game coming up versus the Jets. If they can come away with that win, which I don't think would shock a lot of people, they're going to be in a good spot. The Chiefs have a very tough game coming up against the Lions. They could be a step further behind. The Chargers are taking on the Dolphins. I see that game as a pure toss-up based on the fact that we have West Coast team traveling east. This West Coast team is extremely banged up and injured, and it's all over the place. But the spot right now is the Broncos at that price.
Before we go, Tom, Yankees tonight. What do you think?
Oh.
What do you think? I know you'll be watching. I know you do baseball with me usually, so I'm going to just. I personally think the Yankees are going to keep this going. I don't think they're going to come back being down 0-2, but I think the series will continue, and I think they got a great shot to win the next game too. But going back to Toronto, I don't know. It feels like winning 3 in a row for the Yankees is pretty formidable. What do you think?
I would say the same thing. I would say they probably don't lose tonight. They don't get swept. I would say the same thing about most teams in this point in the season. They don't get swept, but they're not going to win the series overall. As a Yankees fan, it's been tough. I will be on the Blue Jays money line tonight simply as an emotional hedge, which I'll be fine with taking a loss on that if they can extend the series one more game. But the issues with the hitting right now have been an issue, and or it has been the biggest issue for them, and the bullpen has not been good.
Thanks, Tom, for coming on. Have a great week.
Same to you. Shedeur Sanders will be starting for the Browns by week 9. I am buying this. I am buying this absolutely. At a certain point, Joe Flacco just not the answer. We know they already made the change. Dylan Gabriel is starting this week. We know that. But maybe a team needs a quarterback, and they're willing to trade for Joe Flacco for some level of stability, and then we simply get nothing out of Dylan Gabriel. He is a rookie quarterback when it's all said and done. Maybe there's just no production from him. So why not just move on to a different rookie quarterback that you have just to see what you have? And then, as George, as you mentioned up at the top, you have to evaluate going into next year's draft. So I will absolutely buy this.
The next 4 weeks, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Miami, New England. I mean, the question is this. If they truly believe that Gabriel could be a future starter, you got to give him more than 4 weeks, right? That's 4 weeks is not enough. Minnesota, it's a rough game, all right, being played, England this week. Pittsburgh, they haven't have a defense. Miami is not very good. New England's supposed to have a good defense, hasn't here. I'm going to sort of go. I mean, I think Shedeur Sanders is going to start at some point this week. I don't think it's going to be by week 10, although that does make sense here to name him the starter during the bye week, get him 2 weeks here. I'm going to go more, maybe double digits, week 12, week 14, somewhere around there. Because I want to give Gabriel a longer run. I think Gabriel might do some damage here against these lesser defenses here. So I think give him a longer runway here. That being said, I do not think Gabriel is the long-term future of this team. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback at all here. I think he's a number 2 at best here. Sanders could be a number 1. I have doubts about him too. I think Sanders has a better shot. So by week 9, by week 10, I'll sell that. But if you were to give me a couple of more weeks, I would have bought it.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Dabo Swinney, Bill Belichick, James Franklin. Man, a lot of coaches under a lot of fire. We're only a month and a half into the college football season. That's kind of where we're at, though. Our friends at Front Office Sports basically dive into all the different scenarios and a lot of the college football coaches that could be looking at what we would call the hot seat in the sport. Naturally, still a lot of time to go, and certainly a lot of time to pick things up. But there's no doubt that things have not gone the way that they thought for several college football coaches. So here are our friends at Front Office Sports breaking down that hot seat in college football.
Bring in FOS reporter David Rumsey. So, David, let's start with Penn State. Not a lot of people expected things to go this bad for the Nittany Lions. So what happens here with Coach James Franklin, and what's the latest on his buyout here?
Yeah, absolutely, Baker. Renee, great to be back with you as always. And yeah, if Penn State wanted to move on from James Franklin right now this season, it'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million to buy him out. Now, obviously, he's struggling to win those big games. And then this weekend, even bigger disappointment than that loss to a top-ranked Oregon last week, right? So I think the problem for Penn State, though, is what do you do if you buy him out? Not just getting the cash and paying him. They can round that up with their donors, but is there really a better option out there this offseason or even in the future years? And I think that's why he's been able to retain his job, because he is such a good coach, and it's hard to get to that very, very next level.
All right, so we're talking Penn State, but also some other teams that were ranked in the preseason and top 5 across college football in Clemson, as well as Texas, who has the preseason Heisman favorite in Archie Manning. Those 3 teams struggling right now out of the top 25 rankings as of today. Is this more of a case of upsets, or is this more saying that college football is in a space where the middle of the of talent has caught up to the top of the level?
That's a great point, Renee, and kind of something that all of us have been covering and following closely here at Front Office Sports this season. Just the parity that college football seems to have now, with teams being able to get players out of the transfer portal, with expansion of these conferences, making them bigger and bringing more teams in. It's harder to compete, and it's giving some teams a chance to compete like they wouldn't have before, whether it's NIL money or revenue sharing money now this time for the first time this season. So yeah, I think parity is really the example here.
Let's move to Boulder. In my school, University of Colorado, obviously the Buffs lost to TCU over the weekend. But the bigger news, obviously, is Deion Sanders saying that his health issues, especially his blood clots, have returned. And if anything, they're getting worse. So the big question here is, how much longer does Coach Prime stay in Boulder? And does he even finish out the season, given that this health scare is back here?
Yeah, Baker. I mean, no question. We all know what Coach Prime has been able to do for that program and really elevate them, not just off the field with the spotlight, but on the field last season. And then now without Shedeur Sanders there this year and Travis Hunter, they're still searching for that first Big 12 win. So yeah, obviously we had his cancer scare this offseason, and now the return of his blood clots, which he mentioned on Saturday night. So we'll see. I think he'll give an update on that either today or on Tuesday when he meets with reporters. But keep in mind, he did sign a 5-year, $54 million extension back in March, which makes him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. So I don't think Colorado would want to move on from him necessarily if he's willing and able to coach, even though he is an expensive option. But to your point, Baker, could he step away to take care of some health concerns, and maybe his heart just isn't in it anymore with how difficult it is for him health-wise.
Well, we can't talk coaching chaos without going down in Chapel Hill, because one of the highest paid coaches in the ACC and one of the top coaches across college football, Bill Belichick, his tenure has not been good. Now, although he does have about 70 new players and there's a lot of new there, they've been outscored 120-33 across their losses. And not only are they losing on the field, but off the field, Bill Belichick is still going at it with the Patriots with some weird back and forth. The latest is that they can't even tweet or retweet anything from the UNC football account about the Patriots, including Drake May. What is happening here with Bill Belichick? Do you think that realistically his tenure is going to even last past this season, let alone the extent of his full contract?
Man, overreaction Monday, right? Listen, would it surprise anybody if he left after the season, whether he walked away or got fired? At this point, probably not. But if I were a betting man, I would say he does get another crack at it next year. You know, he's trying to preach patience, saying that, hey, we're going to target a lot of freshmen in this upcoming class. It's going to take some time. Now, obviously, he's up there in age, so maybe we're thinking he doesn't have a lot of time, right? But, yeah, just that game against Clemson, I think when, we wrote preseason, kind of forecasting from a media perspective, hey, that could be a huge game, ABC game of the week, maybe College Game Day would visit Chapel Hill. Instead, also Clemson wasn't too hot coming into the game either. It's 12 o'clock on ESPN. Clemson comes in, blows them out of the water. So, yeah, just like Colorado searching for their first conference win, it might be a while before UNC gets their first conference win as well.
football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circa Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
I'm done with the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not upset about it because they look vulnerable. I cannot believe this team is 4-0 because they could easily be 1-3. They go on their heels, and I can't believe they have not 1 but 2 double-digit victories in games they could have very well lost.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Mike Trout, will he ask for a trade? And maybe I'm a bit of a Neanderthal for asking this, and people are going to say, listen, he's never leaving. I refuse to accept that we're just not going to get Mike Trout postseason baseball ever again. Because clearly when healthy, he can still do it. But he's also rarely healthy and still kind of expensive. It's complicated.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The course setup, Bethpage, and how soft the greens were, how long it played, it definitely was an advantage for Europe from my mind, and they putted better.
Well, but do you think, in a weird way, that same setup is what allows the Americans to get back in it today? Because you do see a lot of those big putts made.
Yeah.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball coming your way in 30 minutes from now, exclusively here on SportsGrid. But you're watching NewsWire, and the host of Just Baseball is Peter Appel, who joins us now, and we're going to chop it up with some baseball talk here on the show. Peter, great to have you here for the first time on NewsWire. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's another great day of baseball.
It is. We'll have 2 games today, and then, get ready for Wednesday. If I'm not mistaken, I think we got 4 games on the slate potentially on Wednesday as well. So the Brewers have taken a 2-0 NLDS series lead on the Cubs. They've continued this run that they had during the regular season and hitting a ton of home runs, really just taking it to the Cubs pitching staff. And honestly, Peter, nobody hotter at the moment than Jackson Chourio. Man, did they dodge a bullet with that hamstring. 714 batting average in the postseason, 2,000 OPS. Seems like the Brewers are indeed destined for the NLCS. I'm actually surprised. I mean, I didn't know if the Brewers would be built to go far in the postseason, but I do believe at this point it's fair to say it'd be foolish to think they're not going to get by the Cubs.
I can't believe how good Jackson Chourio is. 21 years old, can barely drink the champagne after a win. He is the he joins Carlos Beltran as the second player ever to start a postseason through his first 5 games with 10 hits, 9+ RBIs, and 3+ home runs. And you said it yourself when you introed. Playing on one hamstring. He was questionable to even play that game yesterday. And what does he do? Take a home run straight away to center field, playing good defense in left field. And that's just what makes the Brewers so good, is they're so deep. From 1 to 9, it's not a lot of names that you've heard of. It's not the bright stars that you see in LA or in Philly, but they're so well managed by Pat Murphy. And when you get this bullpen going, with added adrenaline, we saw what Jacob Mizorowski looked like, 104 miles an hour. He set the pitch tracking record for pitches 103 miles an hour or higher in 1 inning. And then you have Abner Uribe closing it down.
Yeah.
They can pitch, they can hit, they can play defense, they run the bases really well. It's a really good team.
Yeah, they're playing great. And the bullpen, as you mentioned, was huge yesterday, although I got to say, with just watching youth baseball, I'm getting a little tired of these guys going up to like 107 miles an hour. I mean, the harder they throw, the more injuries there are. I understand we glorify it as just the way of the game, but man, it's getting scary out there. Mizorowski, exception to the rule. He's a great pitcher. Okay, the other division series is over. So, I mean, the Phillies lose 2 games at home. I mean, I don't care who it is. I never would have expected that, even if the Dodgers had a more super team that they already have. And so LA is just hugely favored now to win the series, minus 1,300. And I suppose you never know. It's sports, it's baseball, but it sure feels like at some point the Dodgers wrap this up. They win 4-3 yesterday on the strength of a late comeback by Philly that came up short, and Blake Snell, who is saving his best for the postseason too.
Blake Snell became the first pitcher in Dodgers history to go 6+ innings, 1+ hits or fewer allowed, and 9+ strikeouts. He is one of 3 Dodgers pitchers ever in his first 2 postseason starts with the Dodgers to give up 2 earned runs or fewer and strike out 18, joining Clayton Kershaw and Sandy Koufax. He's incredible. While everyone was worried about signing Juan Soto in the offseason, the Dodgers said, that's the guy that we want on the mound. And then you got Yamamoto, and you got Ohtani, and you got Glasnow coming out of the bullpen, and you got Roki Sasaki, who has just emerged as their own version of Yohan Duran. They seem unbeatable to me, which is why I've pushed all the chips in on them to win the World Series. On the Phillies side, how disappointing has the top of their order been, Craig? Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, a combined 2 for 21 in this series. Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber dating back to over the last 2 postseasons. They're a combined 6 for 45, hitting 133. Are you kidding? These are some of the best players in the sport. The Phillies are the Phillies because of these 3 guys. They've gotten great pitching performances. But again, the Phillies are the Phillies because of those 3. And if those 3 don't show up, they have no shot. They haven't even gotten blown out in the series. If those 3 were just average, Phillies might be up 2-0. But instead, they're going to LA to go face Yoshinobu Yamamoto, down 2-0 with Aaron Nola taking the ball game 3. Anything could happen, but I think it's over.
Yeah, I do too. You know, it's interesting too that Schwarber, it's not like he was cold or anything at the end of the season. Like, he was hot going into this thing, and so was Turner. Harper maybe not as much, but I guess the start of the postseason just changed completely for Philadelphia. Meanwhile, here's what they're up against. The Dodgers beat the Astros back in 1981 as the Dodgers were down 2-0 in that series against Houston, and the Giants in 2012 defeated the Cincinnati Reds. And that's it. Every other team has gone on to win. Let's pivot over, Peter, now to the American League, where tonight the Yankees are a very big favorite to at least take this to a Game 4. The total is 7.5, and minus 156 is what I see here on the money line. They certainly have the pitching advantage, I would think, in this game. You really don't know. I mean, Bieber's been good, but you really don't know. It's the postseason. It's been a bit. Total of 7.5 in this game. Do you see the Yankees making this a series? If they don't win tonight, the series is over.
I'm a Yankee fan, Craig, and my level of optimism is about as low as humanly possible. I'm at 1%, just because anything can happen in baseball, similar to the Phillies. But, we were talking about it on our show. I made a couple TikToks about this. Watching that team, the Blue Jays, completely beat down on the Yankees, I went through all 5 stages of grief. And unfortunately, I'm already on the last one, acceptance. Their plan so far against New York has been pitch perfect. Perfect. You're going to go those fastball splitter guys against the Yankees lefties. You're going to make pitches against Judge and Stanton. Let them be over-aggressive for whatever reason, right? In the regular season, Judge isn't swinging first pitch at up and in fastballs. He's not swinging at splitters low and away. So you get the Yankees over-aggressive, and then on the offensive side, they don't strike out, and they jump all over you. And just like that, it's over. The Yankees don't have the bullpen to respond outside of David Bednar. And if the bats don't show up here, obviously, it's over. And I have a hard time believing that the Yankees are going to win this game, because when I'm talking about executing a plan, who would you rather have than Shane Bieber to execute said plan? The Blue Jays have perfectly planned for the Yankees, and we're seeing it play out in a beatdown.
It is thus far. The Blue Jays are minus 550 to win the division series. And I guess if you think the Yankees can make it a series, you may get some decent odds here, as Toronto to win in 5 games, by the way, is plus 490. Maybe that's the most fun bet on the board of those. Now, the Mariners will take on the Tigers, and it feels like this one's going the distance. Every game is certainly nip and tuck throughout. In Game 3 tonight, You have Seattle and Detroit with a total of 7.5. So another potential pitching matchup here that could be one for the books. How do you see this one this evening or this afternoon, 4:08 Eastern?
So I kind of like the Tigers, but I'm not going to stamp my foot on it. I did pick Tigers in 5 at the beginning because I was a little bit worried about the Mariners' road woes over the entire season. I know down the stretch they were just playing amazing baseball. Didn't matter if they were at home or on the road. But it should be noted that Logan Gilbert's strikeout rate is a lot lower on the road. His ERA is upwards of 4.5 on the road compared to 2.24 at home. Opponent batting average 158 at home, 261 on the road. Jack Flaherty turned in a good outing against the Guardians, so I'm not running to back him. But I do think as long as the Tigers are a plus price here, you have to win one of these games at home, and then you win the Scooble start, and at plus 105, I think it's pretty good value.
Yeah, so you like Detroit in 4, is that right? Or do you like them in 5?
I like them to split at home, and then Scooble finally wins the start against Seattle. He's 0-3. I don't think he goes to 0-4. That's why I like Tigers on the series price.
All right, plus 270 would be in 5 if the Tigers win. All right, don't go anywhere, Peter. We're going to take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, we'll dive around Major League Baseball, talk about some of the news and notes and information. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We'll be right back talking some baseball postseason and off-season hot stove when we return right after this timeout.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
I'm done with the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not upset about it because they look vulnerable. I cannot believe this team is 4-0 because they could easily be 1-3. They go on their heels, and I can't believe they have not 1 but 2 double-digit victories in games they could have very well lost.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Mike Trout, will he ask for a trade? And maybe I'm a bit of a Neanderthal for asking this, and people are going to say, listen, he's never leaving. I refuse to accept that we're just not going to get Mike Trout postseason baseball ever again. Because clearly when healthy, he can still do it. But he's also rarely healthy and still kind of expensive. It's complicated.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Course setup, Bethpage, and how soft the greens were, how long it played. It definitely was an advantage for Europe from my mind, and they putted better.
Well, but do you think in a weird way that same setup is what allows the Americans to get back in it today? Because you do see a lot of those big putts made.
Yeah.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're getting ready for baseball's off-season. We'll touch on a couple of free agents and then get to some of the news in Major League Baseball as well. Peter Appel is getting ready for his show, Just Baseball, comes your way in 15 minutes from now, exclusively here on SportsGrid. And Peter, look, I think, just from kind of covering the game, the sense that I get is that, unfortunately, this is not a good time to be a free agent in Major League Baseball. Maybe for guys like Kyle Tucker and a couple of other big-name players, maybe Pete Alonso or if Alex Bregman opt out, I think they're going to be okay. But anybody beyond the big numbers, is looming over with this CBA stuff. And I just don't know what our offseason is going to look like. I know that's not going to excite a lot of fans, but I got to just keep it real here. I'm a little concerned that the owners are going to want to wait to see how that plays out in next offseason.
I'm pretty concerned too, and it just stinks that they can't figure out this lockout. I mean, salary cap, floor, just figure it out. These owners and the Players Association have had so much time to figure something out, and of course they're going to wait until the very last minute, and it's going to put a damper on this free agent market. Now, it's not the greatest free agent market in the world anyway, but when you already dampen that, what we're going to get is a lot of stalled negotiations where it lasts into the season. And what we've seen, I mean, Craig, you've seen yourself, there have been plenty of players. Scott Boras's clients have been the most popular when it comes to this, media rush of, is this player ready? Is this player not? But I feel like we're going to get even more because, of course, Scott Boras is going to be at the head of it, and he wants what he wants for his players, and the teams are going to be very reluctant to spend with the looming CBA coming up.
I kind of agree. And Peter, for me, the winter meetings, I've gone so many times. The one thing that I've sort of stopped doing through the years is if it's not close to me, I stop going because generally speaking, you can't predict year to year if anybody's going to get signed. It's great to see all of everybody in Major League Baseball, but I just hope that this new CBA, if it does include a salary cap, a salary floor, and all of that stuff, I do think that will create a frenzy of free agent signings, and we could see that actually happen in the future at the winter meetings. But as with what you said, I think it's probably going to play out to be accurate. There are going to be some players, and we saw it a little bit last year with Pete Alonso and even Bregman, that are going to be saying to themselves, I'll just wait till February to see what's out there for me.
And that's what makes the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes so interesting, because not only is this a period of free agency that is completely up in the air because of the looming CBA, what does any team feel comfortable giving Kyle Tucker? Because we know when healthy, this guy is one of the best players in baseball, period. We're not just talking offense. We're talking about in the field. We're talking about his ability to potentially steal 30-plus bases. He's an extremely well-rounded player. And going into the offseason, we thought, all right, Kyle Tucker's a looming free agent. This guy is going to get buku bucks. We're talking 400-plus million potentially. But now, after the injuries, after the recent slide, and you look at the postseason performance over the years, it hasn't exactly been there. Now, I don't know how teams are going to weigh that because they know that the postseason is random and a guy can break out at any time, but it's definitely not something good on his resume. And with a looming CBA, the Cubs, we've seen that tweet from Jesse Rogers that says, yeah, they're probably out on him, but will the market get so low? And that's what Buster Only said on our show when he was talking about Kyle Tucker's market, is that the market is going to be so sour on everybody that the Cubs might actually get a deal, but that's the only way Tucker would go back to Chicago. But now it seems like Jesse Rogers is telling us no shot at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Tucker will get a nice contract. He'll be the highest paid guy and the most coveted, and so he'll be okay. I'm a little worried about the others. So this time of the year also, the fans are wondering who the next manager is going to be in a lot of different spots. And that's the talk right now in baseball. But we know that it's a slower process, Peter. There's interviews going on for those jobs. Fans are getting antsy, but you're not going to get a resolution on this, I don't think, for a few weeks. And, you don't want to steal the thunder of the postseason either, so you got to be careful of that. But let's start with the one that we do know about, and that is Skip Schumacher getting the gig with the Texas Rangers. Skip was the manager of the year a couple of years here in South Florida, where he helped the Marlins get back to the postseason for the first time in a really long time. And the Rangers, interesting statement they would make, Peter, is letting go of a legend in Bruce Bochy, wondering kind of how that panned out a little bit. And because I'm not sure that Bochy is going to get the Giants job or any other, I think this could be it for him managing. What went wrong in Texas? And was it a managerial issue for you?
It wasn't a managerial issue in Texas. I think at this point, Bruce Bochy is 70 plus years old, and he said to himself, all right, I don't know if this team really has a shot of winning the World Series, maybe even next year. So I think it's time to mutually part ways. And I think that's what the organization and Bruce Bochy, if I'm reading those reports right. The problem with Texas was their offense stunk. A manager can't fix that. He can't fix Adolis Garcia having the worst season of his career. He can't fix Marcus Semien having the worst season of his career. He can't fix Corey Seager getting banged up constantly. He can't control if Josh H. Smith is the best hitter in his lineup. You look at the Rangers, and if I told you at the beginning of the year, the Rangers would have the #1 ERA in baseball from their starting staff, with that offense, where would they go? You'd say World Series, and yet they missed the playoffs. That's because of the offense. That's not on Bruce Bochy. He can't physically teach them how to hit the ball with a 2-strike count. He can't physically help them not swing at a slider low and away. So no, I don't think it had anything to do with Bochy. I think it is firmly on the fault of the offense this season for Texas.
Yeah, and Peter, before we go here, we're hearing a lot of rumors, for the Braves and the Giants. There's some big jobs out there too. It's interesting is that the University of Tennessee's head baseball coaches come up in a lot of these discussions. I don't know that he's going to get the job, by the way, but it does seem like we're going to get an outside of the box hire or two, maybe with the Giants and maybe even possibly with the Braves.
I love Tony Vitello. I hope he goes to Major League Baseball, but I'm also a huge college baseball fan. So there's another part of me that wants him to stay at Tennessee. One I'm looking at here, I think Mark DeRosa should be at the top of everybody's list. We've seen him manage Team USA. We've seen him on MLB Network break down swing changes and all this stuff beautifully. I think he's a really smart baseball mind. And I do think he's going to end up going to the Braves. And my reasoning for that is he played with Atlanta. But I just think at the end of the day that he is the best manager available. And I think just because of his association with the Braves, that's who is going to replace Brian Snitker.
Great stuff, Peter. Have a great show. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me, Craig.
All right. One quick note from the National Football League. Joe Flacco has been traded from the Browns to the Bengals. He's probably the new quarterback there. We'll be right back.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
I'm done with the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not upset about it because they look vulnerable. I cannot believe this team is 4-0 because they could easily be 1-3. They go on their heels, and I can't believe they have not one but 2 double-digit victories in games they could have very well lost.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Mike Trout, will he ask for a trade? And maybe I'm a bit of a Neanderthal for asking this, and people are going to say, listen, he's never leaving. I refuse to accept that we're just not going to get Mike Trout postseason baseball ever again. Because clearly when healthy, he can still do it. But he's also rarely healthy and still kind of expensive. It's complicated.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Course setup, Bethpage, and how soft the greens were, how long it played. It definitely was an advantage for Europe from my mind, and they putted better.
Well, but do you think in a weird way that same setup is what allows the Americans to get back in it today? Because you do see a lot of those big putts made.
Yeah.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's been an upside-down NFL season. Unlike last year, not all the favorites have been winning this year. And so we'll get into how that has transpired. Also, get ready for the NBA on NBC with a new Grammy Award winner taking over some of the singing before the games. And also, LeBron James makes his big announcement, which is much ado, unfortunately, about nothing. Time now for some last licks. And then there were none. There is not a single team in the NFL that is undefeated through 5 weeks. That's it. I mean, usually you do get up to week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10, week 11, 12, etc. I can keep going. I can count. But this year, that's it. After 5 weeks, there isn't an undefeated team left in the National Football League. Buffalo Bills, of course, losing. Philadelphia Eagles lost this past week. So what does it mean? That little board that you see right there. And then there were none. No undefeated teams in the National Football League, which also means that the 1972 Dolphins remain the only undefeated team in the history of the National Football League. I have to say, I know a lot of people didn't like when the Dolphins would all get together and pop the champagne when any team would lose. It's kind of sad that a lot of them have left us. A lot of them have passed away over the last few years, so you don't see a lot of that online. One of the guys who was still on that team, still alive, Larry Zonka, their running back. I know he usually mentions something, and he used to be Mercury Morris, their great running back who would organize that. These are names no one's probably ever heard of that's watching me, but congrats, Dolphins, still 17-0, a record that may never, ever be broken. Patriots got the closest, of course, then lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. Okay, Round Ball Rock is coming back. NBA on NBC is right around the corner, and not only are they bringing back John Tesh, they're bringing in 4-time Grammy Award winner Lenny Kravitz. He is the star of Sunday Night Basketball, their new show Open that we're going to naturally see a million times a year. It's going to debut on February 1st, 2026 on NBC and Peacock. For those of you unfamiliar, NBC, the broadcast company, has basically decided to go back all in on sports again. They're taking back the NBA. They're going to, in all likelihood, have a lot of Major League Baseball going forward as well. My understanding is they want to do Sunday Night Baseball too. So get ready for folks that like NBC, because you're going to be able to see that. If I'm not mistaken, I think Carrie Underwood is the one that does the Sunday night. Is it right? The Sunday Night Football song. So for NBC. So Lenny Kravitz will do it for the NBA. They'll have to find somebody for baseball. Who would you predict will sing the Sunday Night Baseball song? That's a tough one. Okay, our producer Frank's gone off the grid. No pun intended, SportsGrid. Okay, so Frank, my producer, and I yesterday saw this pop up. LeBron James said he was going to make a big announcement today at noon. It was the decision. Does everybody remember the last time LeBron James made the decision? He was sitting in front of a camera with Jim Gray, and he made an announcement that he was going to take his talents to South Beach to play for the Miami Heat. The sports director at the time in South Florida with the network of the Heat called me and said, go down to American Airlines Arena. They're going to introduce LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. I covered the event. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The arena was completely sold out. It was worth every second of that decision. This one was absolutely nothing. LeBron James comes out and says that he's partnering up with the drink Hennessy. That's it. That was the whole thing. He's not retiring. He's not getting traded. He's not thinking about doing something else, playing football. He's basically throwing an ad campaign out there. By the way, I have no issue with this. I'm sure LeBron signed off on this saying, hey, if I do this, it's going to get a lot of attention. But what he now has to understand that the next time that this happens, no one's going to really care. And that sort of ends the next and last decision that LeBron decides to make. But 23 years, still kicking in the NBA. I gotta get my one more LeBron game in. Used to see him all the time play here in South Florida for the Heat. Covered those games with the Heat too. But this was just dumb. Sorry. Hennessy? Okay, great. Congratulations. We all know now. Mission accomplished. That'll do it for our show today. Thanks to our guests here on the program. They include Peter Appel from Just Baseball. Also thanks to Bill Bender coming on the show from Sporting News as well. Tom Vecchio talking some football and baseball with us. And also Joe Pisapia from Fantasy Black Book and Fantasy Sports Today. Also, tonight is the first game of the hockey season, 5 p.m. Eastern. The two-time defending champion Florida Panthers take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Are you pumped up? Get ready. We'll recap the game, I'm sure, on In-Game Live and some game time decisions. No, we won't. All right. I thought we did a little hockey here. No, nothing. Okay, well, on that note, I leave you. Thanks again to our director, Luke. For my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the hockey if you like. It's perfectly fine. See you back here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire.